our laureate for the evening, who will deliver the inaugural freedom speech. The meaning of that is that every year we hope to have this freedom speech, and that inaugural freedom speech will be delivered by a staunch freedom fighter, someone who was jailed during martial law, fighting for democracy, someone who in the transition to democracy served our country well, first as a member of Congress, then as a member of the cabinet, became president of the Liberal Party and led it through many difficult years. So without further ado, let us listen to the inaugural speech, freedom speech, from Secretary of Budget and Management, Secretary Florencio Butch Abad!
I begin this freedom speech by recounting the most unfree period of my life. That was during the period of martial rule. I landed, as Chito said, in prison twice. Before the dreaded secret police of Marcos was able to capture me, we ended up in the Cordilleras under the care of Episcopalian priests. It was there in the mountains of Sagada where our first child, later on to be named Julia Andrea, was conceived. Alamig. Finally, the Verdugo caught up with us, and we were transferred from one prison to another for interrogation and detention. Later on, Ateneo was able to negotiate for our quote-unquote campus arrest, not hospital arrest. We were luckier than most other victims of martial law. Many others were tortured and raped, were incarcerated in military camps, or liquidated and their bodies never found. Ours is just a story, just one story, one of the many individual stories of trial and triumph. The story of freedom continues today. It is a story not of context external to our control, not of invisible hands moving history, nor of fate. Rather, this is a story of the decisions and actions we take, of how we use our free will to determine our destiny as a people. The important question we face today is this: are we really free enough? Perhaps the answer is obvious to us, especially to the more than 23 million Filipinos who are poor. Perhaps they have seen, as we all have seen, that public institutions were captured by a few interests, that Congress has been the playground of the elite, that our judiciary was never completely insulated from partisanship, that the presidency has been the game of an ambitious and privileged few. Perhaps they have seen, as we all have seen, how poor suspects languish in jail because they cannot afford counsel, while those with wealth and influence get to choose the detention cell that suits them best, or could get a judgment faster than you say TRO. We have to resolve the issues that cloud our vision. That in all these years, government has succeeded in alienating itself from its people through massive corruption, political illegitimacy, and rampant neglect of the people's concerns, especially in the last 9 to 12 years. We, the people, thereafter sought for a successor to carry the torch of Tita Cory, someone to lead the way with the light of empowerment. They saw no other than his son, Noy Noy. President Aquino knows that the urgent problems of our country, that our country faces, corruption and poverty, are much more complex. He knows that the problem is structural, worsened by people losing trust in government due to unresolved problems of the past. He recognizes the link between the restoration of decency, integrity, and accountability in governance, including the struggle to put a closure on the many unresolved cases of abuse of power and the plunder of our nation's wealth, and putting the government back to the service of its people, especially the poor. Some say, forget about Arroyo and just concentrate on the economy. Or some even suggest, respect the Supreme Court regardless of who is at the helm, seeming to have forgotten the uniqueness of this presidency. It was brought to power by a suffering and desperate people who want to dream again. If Arroyo manages to flee the country, he would have already failed the people. And for him, that would have frustrated our people's dream. It is this inspiration and bedrock of support from the people that enables President Aquino to be unwavering in his display of moral courage. A moral courage that allows us to confront head-on these lingering issues so that we may finally begin to speak of grander ideals, of giving substance to our democracy, rule of law, and most of all, freedom.